All right, it's time to talk some Dynasty. I said we were going to do one of these streams a week, but y'all keep submitting a crazy amount of teams, so we're going to have to do more than that. So let's check out this first team. That's going to be from MD Vulcan. Says, thinking I should downgrade from Burrow or McBride to get some depth. Basically, nobody's on the waiver wire. League mate might be interested in Burrow in an early second for May, Jameson, and a future first. Okay, yeah. Expectations, of course, will be that you absolutely have nobody on the waiver wire in your Dynasty League. But here, this is the third team in the League Analyzer. We are currently 0-4, though. So here's my thought process, man. If you're 0-4 and you just lost Joe Burrow, I think that most teams here should probably go through and should probably look at pivoting over to a rebuild. I'm not saying that with every instance. If you were like a complete juggernaut where you also have Lamar and you also had like Drake May as your QB3, then by all means, you can go ahead and you can still try to compete even after losing Joe Burrow. But again, I do think that this is going to be a case-by-case scenario. So we have to reevaluate the team, figure out how many of these pieces would be win-now assets versus how many of these pieces we would be wanting to build around the long term with anyway. So starting off at quarterback, we have Burrow, who obviously is now only a long-term build. We have Caleb, who you could win with right now, and you could build around with the long term. We have Geno Smith, where I'd say Geno Smith really just a win-now quarterback at this point. And then that's really it. I mean, we don't necessarily need to sit here and act like Jalen Milroe at this point is going to be able to provide you guaranteed production long-term. But if we had to bucket him off, he's more so a long-term piece, right? We can all agree with that. Now, going over and looking at what we have at running back, we have Ginty as a rookie. Ginty, probably a better long-term piece than short-term. We have Trevion as a rookie, and right now Armadjo is playing 65% of the snaps in New England. Probably a better long-term piece than short-term. We have RJ Harvey as a rookie, probably a better long-term piece than short-term. We have Cam Scadaboo, probably a better long-term piece than short-term. So we go through and we look at this across the board at running back, and running back, you have a ton of long-term value. Don't get me wrong. I think that these rookie running backs honestly could crush in the second half of this year. Like, I'm not telling you that they're not good. I'm not telling you shouldn't be excited. Like, honestly, you should be excited. But again, they're more so assets I want to build around for the long term, like we already said. Going over and looking at wide receiver, Rome is in year 2. George Pickens, Pickens is young enough, obviously, or if you're a rebuilding team, you don't need to sell him, but I probably would look to throw him in the block. At this point, with Jaden Reed's injury this season, I would say that he's probably more a long-term asset than a short-term one. Quentin Johnston, in year 3 of his NFL career, can kind of go one way or another. Trey Harris is a rookie. Jalen Knowles a rookie. So I'd say, like, if you were pivoting over to a rebuild, you do not need to sell any of these wide receivers. And then going over and looking at our best tight end, our best tight end's a rookie. So I look at this team. It's loaded up with rookies. We just lost our best player. We are already 0-4. If you're wondering how a team's 0-4, it's because they're most likely going up against the league median. So I don't see why we should make a play to try to contend. Like, obviously, depending on the price point, like, it's not like I'm saying that we need to sell Joe Burrow or we need to hold on to him one way or another. Like, obviously, any of these guys can be expendable. Going over and looking at this trade specifically, if you're trading Burrow in a future second for May, JMO, and a future first, like, realistically, that's a very good price point. Like, where you could look at May, the future first, and Jameson Williams and say that they're long-term assets as well. So you are more than welcome to go out there, trade for them. They're not going to disturb our long-term plans, which I think should be the most important for this team specifically. And you would give yourself a shot to maybe contend this season, right? Or if you're starting Caleb in May, that's not a horrible QB room. If we're starting Ginty and then like maybe Cam Scadaboo now, if it looks like he's taking over as a starting running back with the Giants, and we're just waiting for these other rookie running backs to hopefully come on. And then all of a sudden we have JMO as our wide receiver 3 instead of Quentin Johnston. Like, I would make that trade, but what I want to make sure that we are on the same page with is this is a team that should look to play for the long term. This is a team that should be thinking primarily about their value in 2026, 2027, and most importantly, just their value this offseason. So if you wanted to trade Burrow, I would maybe be a little bit hesitant because I would assume that most of the time you're going to be selling him at a massive discount in comparison to what his value is going to be this offseason. But pivoting from Burrow in a second for May, JMO in a first, I think a lot of people would make an argument that May and Burrow have comparable dynasty outlooks at this point. And obviously, I'd way rather have a future first and Jamison Williams than a future second. So, I would make that trade specifically. But outside of that, I think your team's kind of in a good spot to, if you wanted to pivot over to a rebuild, throw Geno Smith on the block, throw George Pickens on the block, and then go into 2026, earn a really high pick. I don't want to say you're going to get the 101, but you're going to get a really high pick with the Burrow injury, and then probably be the best team in the league next year. But I don't really have much else to say about this squad. I just want to make sure that we hammer it in that do not think like, oh, crap, I lost Burrow. I need to go out there and I need to make trades right now to make sure we can win. Because I think your team's situated better for 2026 anyway. But I really appreciate you. And I really hope I was able to help you out in some way. I'm going to send you over some free questions just in case there's anything that you want to follow up with. And for the people watching this, I know the majority of y'all are like annual. I don't want to say the majority of y'all are annual mother flockers, but you all have already heard the pitch to flockfantasy.com 1,000 times. So I'll just let y'all know that what we're probably going to be doing going forward is I've just been, again, I'm going to stream every single day answering questions, not on the Dynasty channel, but in general, I'm going to stream every single day answering questions. How we've always done. But the amount of people that have been sending us questions has been more than ever. So what we're probably going to do is make it where you can buy or send in a roster review at any time that you want. But for you to send in a start, sit, or a trade question, whether that's a redraft league or a dynasty league, you probably are going to need a voucher, which obviously if you got the season pass or you're an annual mother flocker, you get those vouchers anyway. But we need to make sure that we're prioritizing the vouchers over like people just buying the $5 start sit questions, because if somebody already got like the annual mother flocker membership, they already have those vouchers, right? So I need to make sure that I'm answering those first. And I'm just running out of time in comparison to last year where obviously that wasn't an issue. But let's move this over to Recognize. Says, been watching you for a while, so I had to subscribe. Great content, my dude. I'm pretty stacked with my quarterback and wide receiver room, but I need help at running back. Would you make any changes at RB? Well, I really appreciate you, my guy, and excited to check this out. So we are Ohio State wide receivers. So we are 4th in the league analyzer as of now. We are currently 2-2. So this is another league where we're playing against the league median. We scored 265 points, which is right in the middle of the league so far in points scored. We have our 2026 first, and let me show this on the stream. Sorry. We have our 2026 first, second, third. So realistically, like if you wanted to pivot over to a rebuild, you can put yourself in a position where we just kind of lock up the 2026 101 if we wanted, but probably not going to be the plan A, right? Now, this is a Superflex Start 9 format. So with that in mind, you're starting 2 QBs, you're starting a tight end, so you're starting a combined 6 running backs and receivers. So as we go through and as we look at this, running back, we have Breece, Swift, no depth beyond that. But our 4 wide receivers that we can start, we're going out with Nico, Marv, Egbuka, Olave, and then you have the quality depth as well with Pickens and Josh Downs. If this was a start 11 format, I would absolutely love this team. And if this was a start 11 league, I'd say, man, you know what? I think you just go through, you roll with this team as is. I'm not making any adjustments. I love having the wide receiver depth. Maybe some weeks we'll have to throw in an absolute disgusting running back too. But for the time being, we are in a good spot. And one thing that I'm saying here is we need to move Ollie Gordon up our dynasty rankings. I'm not updating the dynasty rankings at the moment nearly as much as I'm doing the redraft. But yeah, Ollie Gordon is way too low here. Now, looking at quarterback, this past week, we took a massive hit, right? We lost Burrow. And we lost McCarthy. Now, maybe McCarthy's not as big of a loss, but still. We have Jake Browning to fill in for now with Kyler Murray. We have Spencer Rattler still as a QB3. So we can still get by at quarterback. But the main thing that we need to understand is the quarterback position just went from, I want to say, the strength of the team or a pretty strong spot to like, oh, the weakness. Like if we have Kyler QB1 and Jake Brown in QB2, it's not great. Going over to running back, Brees is an RB1, not super strong for a contending team. Swift is an RB2, not super strong for a contending team. The wide receiver, we're completely fine. Now, wide receiver, the depth is the strength of the roster overall. So you find yourself in a little bit of an awkward spot. I would say that we kind of need to pick a lane here, whether we are trying to contend or whether we are fine rebuilding for the long term. I think if we were looking at selling a wide receiver, there are a couple different things that we could do. We could just simply flip a wide receiver to a rebuilding team and try to get a running back here. And how we can find a rebuilding team is just simply go through and look at what we have with the records for everybody in this league. Like, is there an 0-4 team? Yeah, this team's 0-4 currently. I mean, the running backs they have are all rookies. So realistically, they're not necessarily going to be looking to sell one of those guys, even if they are a rebuilder. This team, they're 0-4 right now. Maybe they want to pivot over to a rebuild. And with that in mind, maybe there's a chance that we could go ahead and we could just get a really cheap cost on Tyreek. Where obviously if you're a rebuilding team, or at least if I was a rebuilding team, I would be doing anything that I could to sell Tyreek Hill, right? So if we are maybe sending them an offer over, we can pick up Nick Chubb as well, because Chubb would basically be the running back 3 for us, just as a last resort depth piece / player to put in for the buys. I would go ahead and offer the 0-4 team Josh Downs for the combo of Tyreek and Nick Chubb and just see what they say. They reject, I would offer them a third. And I understand that this is a low ball offer, but I mean, this is about the time to approach those teams in your league that are looking really bad, look like they have no shot to win, and start sending them over some of this junk. This team's 1-3 at the moment. They just lost the Burrow connection to Chase. If we're looking at something we could trade with them, the issue is they just don't have any running backs of significance this season. And same thing at wide receiver. They don't necessarily have any win now assets currently. Maybe we can find a team that is just lacking wide receiver depth but still wants to contend. This team has Trey Harris as their wide receiver 4. Maybe there's a world in which they are willing to go out there and trade for a wide receiver depth piece. Actually, no, never mind. They have Keenan Allen here in the short term. They're fine. This team has DJ Moore as their wide receiver 5. They're okay at wide receiver. This team is Mike Evans wide receiver 3, Jennings wide receiver 4. This team is Jacoby Myers wide receiver 4. They're okay. This team is Quentin Johnson wide receiver 4. They're okay. This team is like Sutton, Keon Coleman. They're okay. This team maybe would be interested in going ahead and trading for a wide receiver depth piece. And they do have the running backs that we could potentially target as well. Like if we're looking at maybe flipping them a wide receiver for a running back, you could look at trying to send them a wide receiver like Chris Olave that doesn't necessarily even need to hit our starting lineup right now and see if we can pick up RJ Harvey. Where with RJ Harvey, obviously, we're not necessarily expecting production anytime soon, but you don't necessarily need production anytime soon, where it does look like for the time being, the combination of Breece Hall and DeAndre Swift are viable. But once we get to the bye weeks later in the year, DeAndre Swift may kind of be phased out, and having the RJ Harvey addition could make a lot of sense. So my initial offer to this team would be sending them Chris Olave for the combo of like RJ Harvey and Joe Mixon. If they say no, tell them that they can keep Joe Mixon and see if that gets it done. But overall, your team's just in a very interesting spot because really we are well balanced throughout the entire roster. The only question mark that you would have is surrounding your running back depth. And if we were looking at the running back depth that you could potentially swap to, I mean, it would be as simple as just trading a wide receiver depth piece over to a running back depth piece. But I think that's all I got for you. And again, I really appreciate you and really hope I was able to help you out in some way with this, my guy. But just absolutely brutal losing both Burrow and McCarthy on the same squad. But you have enough quarterback depth where we can survive. Now, let's go ahead and let's check this out for Clark Kev. Let me send you over some free questions before I forget. My guy says, my friend, unlike my redraft team that you reviewed yesterday that we both agreed was in a good place, my first year in Dynasty is not looking so good. I think I messed up by drafting a quarterback too early, passing some good value. What do you think? My bench looks bad. So it's going to be interesting to point out with this Dynasty League is it actually kind of has league settings, or at least roster settings, that are comparable to, and I'm not saying it's the exact same thing, right? I'm not saying that these are exactly like, it's exactly like a redraft league, but somewhat comparable to a redraft format where you are only starting 8 total players. So the depth here isn't going to matter as much as it would in a traditional Dynasty League. And going through, we are 6th in the league analyzer out of 10. We are currently 1-1. We've scored 199 points, so we are 6th in this league with points scored as well. We have our own 2026 first, so we do have a decent amount of depth. But if we just go through player by player here looking at this, I would say that the majority of the assets on your team, I don't want to say the majority, but a lot of the assets on your team are pieces in which we are viewing as contending assets. They'll probably be worth less this offseason than they are right now. And these options would include McCaffrey, James Conner, going over to wide receiver. Maybe you throw in like Brandon Ayuk into that list. Obviously, A.J. Brown's for sure in it. So if you wanted to rebuild, like you would have a decent amount of players that we're going to need to look to sell. But anyway, for the starting lineup now, we're rolling out Mahomes, CMC, James Conner, A.J. Brown, Jamar Chase. We have Pitts at tight end. And then in the 2 flex spots, we have like Ricky Pearsall and Quentin Johnston. So the depth with this team definitely looks very shaky at the moment. But I think that there's a very clear reason behind this. And the very clear reason is just going to be what you currently have with the wide receivers that are injured. Like we go ahead and we look at this. I mean, you have no Xavier Worthy at the moment, but it does look like Worthy could realistically come back this week, and if not this week, next week. And you have no Brandon Ayuk. Throw in the fact that Jaden Higgins isn't really doing anything right now either. Jalen Coker's injured as well. So if we're looking at your team, while I understand that depth looks like a massive concern at the moment, realistically, I think it's not that you just didn't draft a good enough bench. I think that it's more so just you got a lot of these injured / rookie players at wide receiver. It's going to take a little bit of time to get them back and start producing. Now, I would say that we can cycle through this waiver wire and easily find some players that I want to pick up here. You only are rostering Mahomes, and because the roster sizes are so large in Dynasty, you for sure can roster more than just one QB. Like I would prefer to roster more than just one QB. So I would drop Ray McCloud. I would drop Juju Smith-Schuster. I would drop Mason Tipton. I think those are 3 easy players to move off of that they'll never hit your starting lineup. And I would pick up Bryce Young and Matthew Stafford at the very minimum. And I would consider Anthony Richardson. Going over and looking at the running backs, you have Trevor Etienne. You have Will Shipley out here as well. Hell, I would drop Jalen Naylor. I'd pick up Will Shipley. I'd drop Mason Tipton. I would pick up Dontavian Wicks for him instead. Going over and looking at tight end, like I know that Mark Andrews looks like a certified bum, but I would probably drop Elijah Moore for Mark Andrews. So I understand that the team does not look good right now, but I think a lot of it has to do with the injuries that you're dealing with. I think I would make those like 5 waiver wire pivots quickly, like do that right this second. And then we're just going to kind of wait for the wide receivers to come back. Once the wide receivers come back, you'll probably find yourself in a situation in which you have enough wide receiver depth where we can afford to trade for another RB, because we really have no running back 3 of significance at the moment. I mean, obviously you have some of these guys that if their situations were to change, they could produce. Like DJ Giddens is an example. If you were to get a Jonathan Taylor injury, I think DJ Giddens would be phenomenal. But for now, like we don't have a running back 3 that we can rely upon. So eventually I'd probably want to trade for a running back depth piece. But I think that we kind of just have to hold on as is until we get the injured wide receivers back into the lineup. But I really appreciate you and really hope I was able to help you out in some way with this, my guy. And again, thank you so much. Let me make sure. Yeah, we sent you over those free questions again. I know you're always hanging out with us in the live stream, so you know I'd be happy to follow up with anything that you want here, my guy. But let's move this over to our next team. This is going to be from Nader Reigns. This is an 8-team Dynasty League. So it's an 8-team start 9 format. Here, this is going to mean that the depth does not matter whatsoever. Looking at players like Keon Coleman, looking at players like Khalil Shakir, they're effectively meaningless in a league like this, to be honest with you. Now, looking at quarterback, we have Hurts, we have Burrow, we have Jordan Love, we have Bryce Young. Clearly, the Joe Burrow injury really hurts this team. Because in an 8-team league, Jalen Hurts is not an above-average QB1. He's an average QB1. Jordan Love in an 8-team league is a low-end QB2. Bryce Young in an 8-team Superflex league is maybe not even startable. So if we're looking at what we have here at quarterback, it was great before the Burrow injury, but now it's a little ugly. And this team's 0-4 as well. So it's going to be a very interesting note to make. Going over and looking at what we have at running back, Amari Hampton's still a phenomenal play in the long term. I have very little hesitations whatsoever with Amari Hampton in Dynasty, and I'm still very much excited about him. Bucky Irving's producing right now. Caleb Johnson, I am getting spooked off in Dynasty. I think Caleb Johnson could be toast. We don't know yet. But, I mean, Caleb Johnson should be valued a lot closer to like Trey Benson than he was coming into the season. Byshell Tutin's nothing right now. We have some like spot gap starts with Tony Pollard and DeAndre Swift. And with those running backs, like, don't get me wrong, in a lot of Dynasty leagues, and hell, even in my redraft league, I'm starting Tony Pollard with confidence. But in an 8-team Dynasty league, it's like, you know, man, these guys aren't really going to move the needle for you. 12-team format, hell yeah. But in an 8-team league, not so much. Going over and looking at receiver, we have Jefferson, who just lost his quarterback. We have JSN, we have Tet, we have Hunter, we have Golden. So we have a ton of these rookie wide receivers that should improve as time goes on. And we have Trey McBride. So here's the thing that I would caution with your team right now. Right now, we are 0-4. We've scored 356 points. So we are 6th in this league with points scored. We have our own 2026 first, so it is in play for us if we wanted to go out there and if we wanted to potentially try to make a play to get the 1-on-1 next year. So I would possibly consider going through and pivoting this over to a tank job and looking for 2026 and beyond. I know this team looks like crazy, and if you're in a 12-team format, you'd be drooling for this. And if it was a 12-team format, you would say, man, this is by far and away the best team I've ever seen. But it's a 8-team league where you can only start 9 players. So like the wide receiver depth's not even that valuable. Now there are going to be pivots that I'm looking to make here. I think I would drop Cedric Tillman for Luther Burden right away. I would drop Kendre Miller for Tank Bigsby. I would drop Rico Dowdle for DJ Giddens. I would drop Cedric Tillman for Luther Burden. I would drop Kayshon Boutte potentially for Kyle Williams if we're just thinking long-term. And then you have Mason Taylor, Terrence Ferguson, and Elijah Arroyo out there on the waiver wire as well. I would consider dropping like Jonathan Brooks for Mason Taylor if Jonathan Brooks is actually taking up a roster spot, but there's a good chance that obviously he's on the IR and he's not taking up a spot depending on our league settings. But if you wanted to pivot over to, I'm not going to pivot over to rebuild just yet because your wide receivers are too good for that. Like, you still have a shot to win this year. But I would not be trying to make trades where we sell future assets to win right now. I think instead you would be incentivized to probably look long-term and maybe are in the 101 next year. So definitely make those waiver wire moves right now. I wouldn't start selling off these contending assets like DeAndre Swift, Tony Pollard, Terry McLaurin. Those would be the names that you would immediately sell if you wanted to pivot to 2026 and beyond. I wouldn't do that just yet. I would see if this team can actually come through in a big-time way this next week. But if you fall to like 0-6, where we're already 0-4, then at that point, it's like, man, you just lost Burrow. We're 0-6. Let's punt it off until next year. Let's sell these win-now assets. Let's build around the rookie and young wide receivers, and let's come back with possibly the best team in 2026. But I really appreciate you and really hope I was able to help you out in some way with this. And again, thank you so much for being a member of the flock, my guy. Let me send you over those free questions just in case there's anything that you want to follow up with this team. Okay. Now, and we'll move this over to our next question. This one's coming out from Mr. Filthy Wubs. It says, third year in a Dynasty startup, 0-2, actually 0-4, extra median game. We finished fourth in 2023. 2024, we got the 108 with Bowers. 2025, we got last, so we got the 101, so we have Genty. I traded away Jacobs to get my 2026 first back. I lost Purdy. I'm relying on Mac Jones. Should we sell Lamb for a full rebuild? So I hear that you traded away your 2026. I'm sorry, you traded away Jacobs to get your 2026 first. And I kind of take that as, oh, okay. Yeah, looks like we are already in the midst of pivoting to a rebuild here. So we are the Dub Hub. We are currently 5th in the league analyzer. We are 0-4, as you already mentioned. We've scored 218 points, which isn't bad. Like, that's 8th in the league in terms of total points scored. But looking at this, it seems like we may actually get Brock Purdy back sooner than we were initially thinking. And at the same time, we just had arguably the biggest hole in our league or on our roster get filled with Jordan Mason. Like, running back 2 is absolutely garbage with our team. And all of a sudden, Jordan Mason looks like he is going to be a league winner given the Aaron Jones injury. Now, with that being said, quarterback with or without Brock Purdy is still going to be weak. Like, if Purdy's our QB1, that's a below average QB1. If Lawrence is our QB2, that's a below average QB2. And then we have Mac Jones, Shadur Sanders shared in our QB3 slot. So realistically, we are not in a great situation when it comes to quarterback. Going over to running back, we have Genty, Jordan Mason. So really excited about the top 2 names. But depth beyond that is non-existent. Going over to wide receiver, we have CeeDee Lamb looking like a true elite wide receiver. I may move him up in our dynasty ranks. We have Chris Olave, who's okay, and then we have nobody. Tight end, we have Brock Bowers. So this is start 9 format, and you have a total of 7 players that we could start, assuming everybody is fully healthy, while at the same time, we're not even taking into account buys. So your team, if you have started off 0-4 with this, you're not good enough to win this year. Like, you have a couple different options that you could do. You could either try to sell Brock Bowers for an absolute haul, where we are getting back a serviceable tight end. Maybe he's not elite, but you're getting back a tight end such as Dalton Kincaid, just somebody that we can start. And then you're also getting back 3 to 4 wide receivers and running backs that you can put in your lineup as well. Because you go through the bye week hell with this team, you're not making it out the other end. So if you were 4-0 with this roster, I would say, yeah, man, you got to sell Bowers. You got to go through. You got to just get as many additional starters as we can. We can't be putting Calvin Austin in our starting lineup every week. We can't be starting Kenneth Gainwell every single week. We got to go and try to trade for some running back and wide receiver depth. But instead, knowing that we're 0-4, I think you just pivot to a rebuild. I think it's time to throw in the towel, which is so frustrating because I know we had the rebuilding roster last year and we got Ashton Shinty, and it sucks to have to rebuild 2 years straight. But I think what would suck worse is doing everything we can to scrap together wins this year to miss the playoffs anyway. And then instead of having the 101 next offseason, we have the 106 and less value overall because we didn't go out there and trade Jordan Mason for future value. So what I would do with this team right now, to be honest with you, is, again, I'm pivoting to a rebuild. I think if we were looking at those assets that we would want to be selling if this was a rebuilding team, Jordan Mason would be a no-brainer to sell. I think that you should expect to get a really nice haul for Jordan Mason, considering what we have when it comes to just the Aaron Jones injury propping him up in a much better situation. At least I would hope that we could get a haul for Mason. And then outside of that, I mean, I would throw Olave, I'd throw Lamb on the trade block. You don't necessarily need to sell them because you can just assume that they're going to be similar players in the offseason to what they are now. But again, you sell like Olave and Jordan Mason. You go out and get a 2026 first and a 2026 second. You essentially lock yourself in the 101 next year as well. And then you also have the additional rookie firepower to make moves and have that flexibility in the offseason. But I really appreciate you and really hope I was able to help you out in some way with this, my guy. And let me send you over some more of those free questions just in case there's anything else that you wanted to follow up with us here. Okay. And let's move this over to our next question. This one's going to be from Ratatouille. I think this may be our last Dynasty team. Let me just go through and look. And we'll cycle through some other Dynasty stuff in a bit. I mean, we'll refresh and see if we have any more Dynasty teams that we can find that were submitted. But Ratatouille says, am I cooked? I'm willing to wait before I go all in on a superstar. What's the move right now? The top 2 teams are stacked. Also, what Ironman race did you just run? I just did Ottawa back in August. Congrats, my guy. I hope that you enjoyed it. I did Nice, France. I had signed up for Lake Placid this past year, but I did a 100-mile ultra marathon, like I want to say a month before the Ironman, and the ultra marathon absolutely killed me. So I backed out and I wimped out of doing the Placid Ironman. I may do IM Texas this next year though, but yeah, again, really appreciate you and congrats. Super happy to check this out for you. Let me send over these free questions. And looking at where we're at right now with the league analyzer, we are third. We are 1-1. We've scored 299 points. So we are number 2 in this league in total points scored, which is incredible given the context of our running back position. Our running back position, we have Trevion, RJ Harvey, and Caleb Johnson, who obviously have done absolutely nothing, who obviously are long-term assets that we can't really bank from production in the short term. We just lost Burrow, though, which is kind of devastating. Now, at least we do have Daniel Jones looking like a viable play at QB2 behind Caleb Williams rest of season. But nonetheless, with no Burrow here, if our QBs are Caleb and Daniel Jones, we are going to be in a pretty bad spot in general. Now, we have Matthew Stafford and Spencer Rattler, so we should always have a quarterback that we can get into that super flex spot, and we shouldn't have that many hesitations with it. But I will say, of course, that it's a 10-team super flex league, right? So we just need to have higher expectations across the board. Okay. Now, going over and looking at what we have when it comes to the running back position. We have Chuba Hubbard and we have DeAndre Swift that we can start right now and just get by with. I'm going to assume that's actually who you've been starting. And then obviously we've just been hopefully waiting for the rookies to come through for us. And then we even have Byshell Tootin. So I think it's a completely fine running back room because you have the short-term production and you have the long-term upside. Going over to wide receiver, we have Jamar, we have Tet, we have Addison, we have JMO, we have Olave, we have Jennings. So realistically, we have 6 startable names. Going over to tight end, we have Tyler Warren. So we have an elite tight end, both in the short and long term. So this is a great team. You know what I would do with this team, to be honest? You're second in the league in total points. I think we have a lot of value across every position. We just lost Burrow. I would see if we can find a rebuilder to take on Burrow. And obviously it's painful having to sell Burrow because you're not going to get the same price that you would have if you just sold him last week, but it's just the struggle of playing fantasy football, right? So let's go through and let's look at some of the teams in this league that are at the bottom in terms of points scored. This team has scored the least amount of points in this league so far. They are 1-1, however, so maybe they convince themselves that they can contend. But I would go through and I would offer them Joe Burrow and a future first to try to get Lamar Jackson. If you could send Burrow in your future first to get Lamar, I think you're an absolute juggernaut this year. This team has the second least points scored. I would go ahead. I would offer them Burrow for Mahomes. See what they say. This team is the third least points scored. I would offer them Burrow for May. And I would also possibly throw in Breece Hall. Like I would go Burrow and Caleb Johnson to see if we can get to Drake May and Breece if they want to pivot over to a rebuild. This team's 0-2, the fourth least points scored. So they are currently second to last in the league standings. They have no Godwin, no Reed, no Rice in the short term. So there's a good shot that this is going to be a team that falls to 0-3. Issue is they don't really have a quarterback that we'd be interested in selling Burrow for. They have like Derrick Henry if you wanted to offer them like RJ Harvey to flip to Derrick Henry and get the short-term production in at running back and sell the long-term value. This team's second to bottom in the league standings. They're 0-2 with the fifth least points scored. Maybe if you wanted to go through and offer them Joe Burrow and Caleb Johnson for Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow and RJ Harvey for Jalen Hurts, see what they say and if they wanted to pivot over to a rebuild. And then obviously you can throw in someone like Byshell Tootin for it. But I'm okay. I think your team's strong enough across every position that if you wanted to go out there and if you wanted to make a trade to make sure that we can contend right now, again, you are strong enough where you can justify making that move. But let me send you over some free questions just in case there's anything that you want to follow up with. Actually, I already did that. But again, thank you so much. Congrats on the Iron Man as well, my guy. And I think it sucks having the Burrow injury hurt Burrow and Chase. But ultimately, your team's good enough where I think you can get through it. And I'd be fine losing some value to go out there and make a play at getting the Upgrade Insider starting lineup now. Okay, I'm going to filter through this real quick and see if we can find any other Dynasty teams for this stream. Ooh, did the wrong thing here. Perfect. All right. Redraft, 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 redraft. Please tell me we get a Dynasty here soon. Okay. Okay, here is a Dynasty from Peck Birdman. It says, hey, this is a Dynasty league that I started this year. I took Burrow in the first. Should I start rebuilding and sell some players or trade my first for a player like Goff? This is my first year trying Dynasty, and it's been a lot of fun so far. I love the content. Thank you. Thank you, my guy. So you are in a little bit of a pickle because right now we're 1-1. We've scored 281 points. So we are right in the middle of this league with record, as well as right in the middle of this league with points for. So it's not easy to say like, oh yeah, man, we've lost every game. Let's just go ahead. Let's pivot to a long-term build. The Joe Burrow injury is going to put us in the grave, blah, blah, blah. No, we can't say that. Instead, you may actually need to go through and you may actually need to think about how our roster is constructed and make a decision on what direction we're going to go with based off what our assets currently look like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bucket players into 3 different categories. Assets that we would be excited to win now with, but not excited about their long-term outlook. Assets that we'd be excited about their long-term outlook, but they're not as valuable right now. And assets that we're excited about both in the short and long term. So an example of this, Joe Burrow would fall into the bucket that he's just long-term value, no short-term production. Justin Herbert would fall into the bucket that we're excited about both short and long term. Any running back in Dynasty that's on their second contract, I would say in general, I'm going to be a little bit more excited about their short-term value than I would be their long-term production. So I would say James Cook, more of a long-term piece here. James Cook, more of a short-term piece. Trey Benson, kind of a hybrid of both. Ladd McConkey, definitely a cornerstone asset, can be excited in the short and long term. Zay Flowers can be excited in the short and long term. T. Higgins, I would say second contract, drafted in 2020. Probably a little bit more excited about T. Higgins in the short as opposed to the long term. Diggs, definitely more of a short term asset. Laporta, a little bit of both. Isaiah Likely, a little bit of both. So you really don't have like a clear-cut identity with this team. This isn't necessarily a team that is built to win right now, nor is it a team that's built for long-term value. I'll say in general, Justin Herbert's probably an average QB1, but for us to not have a QB2 puts you in a very awkward spot. If you were a much stronger team, I would say, you know what? Yeah, I'm fine. Let's go through and let's sell our 2026 first. Let's go get a quarterback that we can start right now. But the thing is, you sell your 2026 first for a quarterback that you could start right now. And you have Trey Benson as your running back 2 here. You have Ladd McConkey as your wide receiver 1. Are we contending at that point? We can try, but we're not going to be strong. It's not like we'd be one of the stronger teams in the league. We'd arguably be one of the weaker teams in the league. While at the same time, we would have no future first, so we would be really compromised with our long-term outlook and our long-term value. Let me see. Nobody really on the waiver wire of significance. Let's go through and let's see. If you're selling your 2026 first, it has to be for like a no-brainer cost. Where it's like, man, I'm getting such a good player that this is great. So here's an interesting setup. This team here at the very bottom of total points scored is also 0-2. They very clearly should be playing for the long term. They're built around a lot of these rookies. I would consider offering them Joe Burrow for a quarterback that falls in the bucket that we're excited about him in the short and long term. If you wanted to go through and if you wanted to offer Burrow and try to get back Drake May and then like a horrible, like just a bum running back that I don't know. Like, obviously, Pacheco is just so damn bad. But if you wanted to offer Burrow for May, that could be a move that ultimately allows you to stay in it this season, and you're not compromising your team to an extreme level by trading away your future first. And with how bad Pacheco is, they'll probably throw in Pacheco for free. So, again, it's a tough spot, but they're 0-2. They're dead last in this league. So there's a chance that they would prefer Burrow over May. This team's second to last in this league right now. They've already started loading up with future picks. You can offer Burrow possibly for like almost every veteran asset that they have. If you wanted to offer Burrow and try to get back, you know what you can do? So we don't really have a QB3 of significance either. If you wanted to offer Burrow for like Caleb Williams and Jared Goff, I will send that offer out and see if they have any interest. But overall, I agree. Like, if you were going to contend, you need another quarterback and possibly you need another running back. But your team is not good enough to sell your 2026 first. I want to have the option that if we really need to, we can pivot over to a rebuild. But I think that's all I got for you, my guy. I really appreciate you, and I really hope I was able to help you out in some way with this. Now, let me refresh this, see if we have any more Dynasty teams to look at. Okay, down here. Okay, yeah, it looks like all these are redrafts. So we're probably going to call the Dynasty stream here. If you got in a Dynasty team review, I'll probably do it on super early Sunday morning, to be honest with you. But again, I'm going to actually end this live stream, then I'm going to bounce over to the redraft channel because obviously y'all can tell we got a bunch of questions that we need to answer there. I really appreciate y'all. Again, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not, like, I need to be prioritizing redraft content during the season just from a business perspective. It just has to be done. But we'll keep on doing the Dynasty streams whenever we get Dynasty teams sent in, just because, again, it is, if a Dynasty team sent in, I have to review it. Like, and I'd rather do it in a Dynasty live stream than I would in a redraft live stream. I'd rather like go through and do all the Dynasty teams at once rather than go like redraft Dynasty, redraft Dynasty, redraft Dynasty. But I appreciate y'all guys, and I really hope I get to see you out in the next Dynasty live stream. I don't exactly know when that will be, but probably we'll have one next week.